In the Impact segment tonight, President Obama's ISIS policy under siege. Remember that just a day before the Paris attack, President Obama told ABC News that ISIS was, quote, contained. Republicans have slammed the president for those remarks, but Democrats, they defended him.
Last week, President Obama said ISIS was contained. Was he right when he said that?
We are prepared to defeat ISIS by any definition. The president has engaged with more than 65 other countries to defeat ISIS. The president knows better than any of us the threat that they pose to the security of the world and to the American people. So I have confidence in the president's take on what is out there.
Of course, this is the same president who called ISIS the JV team back in January 2014. Within months, they had taken over a third of territory in both Iraq and Syria. Hillary Clinton was asked about that this week.
Do you believe that President Obama underestimated ISIS when he called it the JV team?
Look, I don't think it's useful to go back and replow old ground.
Just say yes. Joining us now for reaction, Nomiki Konst, the Democratic strategist, and from Washington, Rebecca Heinrichs, a fellow at the Hudson Institute. So, Rebecca, Democrats keep having to defend the president's comments about ISIS. Is that going to be a liability on the campaign trail?
Of course it will. And the answer, of course, is yes, the president underestimated ISIS. He continues to underestimate ISIS. And until Hillary Clinton is even willing to use the words Muslim extremist or that these are radical Islamists, she won't even identify who it is we're at war with. And until we get around to being able to use these words properly and identify the enemy, I don't know how anybody can expect them to defeat them and ultimately kill them.
Nomiki, what is the risk of saying the president was wrong?
Because he wasn't wrong. I think if you actually listen to the full speech from a week ago, if you listen to the full speech, he was talking about containment within Iraq and Syria. He's talking about cutting off the head of ISIS. You know, the time
Are they contained?
You know, they're more contained than they've ever been. Listen, I mean, if you go back to pre-Obama policy, more than they've ever been.
That's just not even
militarily,
accurate.
so they are not making
no
progress.
Spin, right? Don't spin
I'm
this.
not spinning.
They're spreading.
So, but they're not spreading as of last week. They're, you know, when you look at military, when you look at the troops on the ground there, they are being attacked militarily. They're being attacked. You know, listen. Honduras, they caught those guys in Honduras, right? At the border of Honduras. You know, that wouldn't have been possible if America wasn't sharing their intelligence across the world. It is America's amping up of intelligence. It's America's amping up of national security and internet security
sure
that's
how
been able
our
to
intelligence
target.
shared with the rest of the world caught 5 Syrian fighters that wanted to come across the border in Honduras. Rebecca, what about it? What about a Democrat or what about anyone just coming out and saying, enough, we were wrong, fix it, President Obama? I mean, Nancy Pelosi, what's in it for her to back the president in this failed strategy?
Yeah, what the American people want, they want people to speak clearly, to not treat them like children, to not demagogue them if they disagree with their positions, but to just explain things to them and let them know what's going on. That's how you gain the confidence of the American people.
So why aren't the Republicans doing that, Rebecca? I mean, this is an issue here.
What
Republicans
ISIS
are talking
is doing
about
is trying to establish the Islamic Caliphate, and that's exactly what they're doing.
The
Establishing the Islamic Caliphate by spreading territory and maintaining, and they're actually establishing a government. ISIS is now able to distribute goods.
Hold on.
And so,
you're pointing out refugees. I think 47 Democrats just voted with Republicans and saying enough, at least slow down the Syrian refugee policy or make it much more harsh. What about that?
You know what? Here's an area where I am just as mad at Democrats as you are. Those 47 Democrats, from Representative Sinema to Representative Murphy, are more interested in voting along with Trey Gowdy, an extremist Republican, than with fellow Democrats and standing for leadership.
So how about voting the right way?
Really
how about they're concerned about the safety of American people and they voted the way they felt?
So many years, 1939, we had a boatload of Jewish refugees coming to America. There was a poll that came out a few weeks before saying 50% of Americans didn't want those refugees. Guess what? We pushed that boat back, and what happened? A quarter of those Jewish refugees were sent into the Holocaust and died. We don't rule by polls. We rule by leadership.
So I keep hearing this over and over and over. 1939, 1942. We got it. We understand what you're doing here. ISIS wasn't around then. 53%, Rebecca, of Americans say stop all Syrian refugees right now.
I find it really interesting that my colleague is able to use the words Republican extremists, but she finds it impossible to use the words Islamic extremists.
She's got a point.
You've
She's
got
got a point.
the American people here. What they're afraid of, they're not afraid. The president wants to demagogue those who disagree with him, who are afraid. He says that the Republicans are afraid of widows and orphans, but they're not. They're afraid of their neighbors becoming widows and orphans. That's
But
the
the
problem.
refugees
And if
are
the president,
overwhelmingly
I don't-
widows and
I don't-
orphans. Only 2%
I don't
are
necessarily- listen
males
to me,
under
please let me explain.
24.
This is what I'm trying to explain to you. I don't necessarily even disagree with you. The problem is the president isn't even trying to persuade. The whole point of being president of the United States and operating in a democratic system, which we have, is to persuade those who disagree with you. Instead, he mocks and he ridicules and he demagogues.
All right,
and so who can blame the Republicans?
Let me try and persuade Nomiki a little bit. Are these killers, ISIS in Mali today, the other ones in Al-Qaeda, are they radical?
Absolutely.
Are they Islamists?
Some are, and some are just radicals in the community. They're using
how
Islam
are you
in the
not
name
able
of
to
terrorism.
see that they are radical Islamists?
No, they're using Islam in the name of terrorism. They are radicalizing.
They're radical in the name of Islam.
In the
I
name
would
of
call that
Islam, but
radical
that's not
Islamists.
Islam.
Gotta leave it
Islam
right
is
there.
a peaceful
Nomiki,
religion.
Love you. Nomiki, you got to go. And Rebecca, thank you very much. Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening. Should Americans take in Syrian refugees?